Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be covering a way that I use Copilot in Excel that's completely streamlined the way that I do monthly reporting. A regular task that I do in my job and that I'm sure happens in so many roles out there, taking data from multiple sources and putting it all on a PowerPoint to share back with your team. Now there may be some situations where you have data that you pull from a platform and you self-serve the data, so it's really quick anyway, but sometimes it can be the case that you have a very large Excel that you collate all the data into one place so that it sort of acts as a static archive of all your engagement, purchases, any kind of customer behavior, so it can be referenced in future. But often if that's a document that's kept and is ongoing each month, it can end up housing so many pieces of data that you've got to draw together to add to the PowerPoint, and this can often take so much time. So let's have a look today at how I use Copilot in Excel to completely reduce the time it takes me to do this each month. Let's have a look. Okay, so what I've got here is a PowerPoint slide that's essentially like a mock-up of a monthly report for a CRM team in a company that want to track all of their email engagement going out to customers. So they'll want to track things like email engagement throughout the month, the previous month of April, and over on this Excel doc that I've got here is the place where the team collect all of their email engagement stats, and they go month by month. So we've got March for previous month and April here for the current month they're tracking. And what is usually the case is on one workbook you'll have multiple tabs that hold all the different kinds of data that you need to carry over to the PowerPoint slide. So as mentioned, email engagement here on the monthly stats tab, data from GA4 that's tracking all of the key kind of conversion types and sessions, and extra bits about our database engagements, how often our users are consenting to marketing emails. So all different kinds of things that we all want to carry over to this tab here, the monthly reporting table, which is a direct copy of our PowerPoint slide where all the stats need to end up. So essentially I've taken a copy of this table and added it to a tab in Excel, so that what I'm going to do in a second is ask Copilot to bring together and collate all the different bits of data that I need across the workbook and add them to this table. Now what I've done in my day-to-day job is on the tab where I've laid out the PowerPoint table on the Excel workbook is firstly I'll create a column that just reminds Copilot where in the workbook it can find the data it needs to bring in and where that belongs on the table of stats that I'm going to bring over to PowerPoint. So purchases can be found from the GA4 data tab, engagement can all be found on the monthly stats tab, and so on. This may not entirely be needed, but I've found doing this in my own job and just completely reduces any chances of there being mistakes or Copilot adding the wrong kind of data. Something I've also found quite useful when I've been creating the prompt that I'm about to drop into the Copilot are also things like reminding it here on the engagement tab. We're going to be looking at the row for the start of April because I only want stats to do with April and I don't want it to bring in anything from March and things like that. That does kind of mean that as you go each month, you're going to have to kind of update your prompt. There could be a better way to do it, like just saying in the prompt, please look at the most recent date. But at present, I just go in and make small changes to the prompt to let it know exactly the first row of the month I want stats for, just as a little reminder. And what I've done in this example is on the monthly stats tab, I've deliberately left cells blank and also not done month over month percent variances, because I want to not only see if it can carry stats over to the table that I want to carry over to PowerPoint, but I want it to also fill in missing blanks where it could do the calculation. So just to quickly summarize before I test the prompt, I've reminded it where and what month I want all the stats for and what corresponding row that month starts on. In the table I want all the stats to go into. I've entered a column that reminds it where in the workbook that data sits, if it's GA4 data or if it's just the email engagement that we might bring across. And I've also reminded it in the prompt that there may be some mistakes or calculations it needs to do, or empty cells that might need filling with the correct calculation. And then finally as well, because it's going to be looking across lots of data to make my life a lot more simple, I've asked it to also point out in the final answer, I've asked it to share any kind of insights that I may have missed, or any kind of things like outlier engagement emails, or any things like emails that are outliers in terms of seeing a spike in engagement, or if there's any particular drops or areas of concern that I need to pay attention to. Okay, so I'm going to go to my reporting table. I'm going to copy the prompt that I've already written. I'm going to open Copilot up here. Now, I made a previous video that talked about the two differences in Copilot that are available in Excel. You previously had Copilot Chat and then Copilot AI Agent. Chat was something that you asked for kind of quick summaries of data, but it didn't have the functionality to actually amend the data directly in Excel. But when you switched to AI agent in Excel, that's when it could work with the data directly and make amendments for you. From what I can tell now, they've basically merged both of those. So the minute you open Copilot in Excel, you are dealing with the AI agent that can work with the data directly. So I dropped my prompt into the chat bar and I click enter. Now previously I have done this before and it actually did take quite a while. I did a test run of this before recording this video. No word of a lie, it took no longer than 30 seconds, which I think might also be the case here. So it's analysing the gaps found on the monthly stats tab first, and also pointing out all the destinations that it's found, empty values and things like that. And there we go. And it's not been longer than 30 seconds that it's immediately just dropped all of the values into the table that I needed. And I think what's really helpful here is, as I say, it's detailed where it found the gaps that it needed to fill and make the calculations that I deliberately left blank for the month-over-month percent variances. It's detailed everything that's filled out in the table and listed some key insights and outliers. That's great. And some recommended actions as well. That's really good. So not just insights, but what I can do moving forward as well. That's really helpful. But it's also worth just having a quick cross-reference to make sure that it really is the correct stats in the right places. I can see here, yep, I previously left this cell blank, open rate, that is correct. So that's good, it's done a calculation, and it has also filled in the month-over-month. I will just double check if that is correct. And that's also correct as well for working out the month-over-month variances. So just doing some checks, it seems that it's done everything correctly. I will just also double check to see if it's brought in data from other sources there's existing data on other tabs. Has it brought in the right amounts and not grabbed the wrong value, for example? So we've got total purchases from email, 107, that's on the GA4 data tab. Total purchases, 107 for April, great. Total sessions, 158k. Total sessions, 158k, great. So yeah, by the looks of things, it's done everything incredibly quickly. And whilst this is a small mock-up example and not that much data, if you're dealing with examples where there's a workbook with tabs that filled with tons of data, this can immediately reduce so much manual work on lots of columns that need calculations made or bits of data that are grabbed from different places. Because again, I think you must see this all the time where there's an Excel workbook that's essentially a repository for any kind of data going back however long. There's so many more other examples I can see that would make this so much more useful if I wanted to quickly compare April of this year versus an April last year, or sum up total sessions from email from a particular period last year. It can do everything just so much faster. And as we saw, this took no longer than 30 seconds to do. So yeah, and I guess now what it would be a case of is I would then simply copy this entire table and carry it over to our PowerPoint, where I can essentially just add it to that slide and it's done really quickly. And that's what I love about this little use of AI as a way to reduce time taken on monthly reporting. Is not only does it reduce the time taken, definitely deal with any kind of situations where there might be mistakes made due to human error and things like that. And again, it's so great that as a starting point to be given this within 30 seconds, as well as it doing everything else I need for reporting on the data, is so helpful. Anyway guys, I hope you found this video helpful. It's just another little example of the way that I use AI in spreadsheets at work to completely transform the way I do things and reduce the time it takes to report on data. I really hope you enjoyed it. This channel is going to be all things AI and automation in spreadsheets. I absolutely love working with data, and I'm always looking for ways that I can understand better and best use AI in spreadsheets to completely transform the way I do things. So if that sounds good and you want to learn more, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon for another video.